like to welcome everybody this year to the Colorado Hispanic Chamber's Hispanic Heritage Celebration. Unfortunately, we are doing everything virtual, and so I appreciate everybody's patience and waiting for a few minutes while we set things up technically. My house currently looks like a television studio, so I wanted to take a moment and really thank Jesus and thank Martin and thank his son for all the assistance they provided. And so for a moment, I'd like you to take an opportunity and listen to Adolfo Romero as he plays Spanish language guitar, and we will get back to the program in just a moment.
Hello, my name is Adolfo Romero and I'm going to play some Latin American music for you. This is called Fin Estampa by Chabuca Grande.
Una veredita alegre con luz de luna o de sol, tendida con una cinta con sus lados de arrebol, arrebol de los geranios y sonrisas con rubor, arrebol de los claveles y las mejillas en flor, perfumada de magnolia, rociada de mañanita. La veredita sonríe cuando tu pie la acaricia y la cuculí se ríe y la ventana se agita cuando por esa vereda tu fina estampa pasea. Fina estampa, caballero, caballero de fina estampa, un lucero que sonriera bajo un sombrero, no sonriera más hermoso ni más luciera. Caballero, y en tu andar reluce la cera al andar. Eso. Te lleva hacia los aguanes y a los patios encantados, te lleva hacia las plazuelas y a los amores dorados. Veredita que se arrulla con tafetanes bordados, tacón de chapín de seda y fustes almidonados. Es un caminito alegre con luz de luna o de sol, que de recorrer cantando por si te puedo alcanzar. Fina estampa, caballero, quien te pudiera guardar. Fina estampa, caballero, caballero de fina estampa, un lucero que sonriera bajo un sombrero, no sonriera más hermoso ni más luciera. Caballero, y en tu andar reluce la cera al andar.
I want to thank everybody for being able to go through and watch, and then I will tell you it is a slightly awkward experience of standing in my kitchen and welcoming everybody into my house. But as we are on the verge of being able to go through and celebrate another year of Hispanics and the contributions they've made, I want to be able to go through and take a moment and just remind everybody, how fortunate we are. And despite the challenges that we've been through, I think it's really important for us to kind of consistently remember the important things and the simple things that actually help make us feel a little bit closer together. With that, I'm also would be remiss if I did not mention that I am incredibly honored to be able to go through and stand in front of you this evening and serving on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Colorado. And it is a job that I desperately basically enjoy. And although I end up every evening with a tremendous amount of anxiety, I wake up in the morning, renewed, refreshed, and feeling passionate about what we've been able to do. So I'd like to take a moment and thank our board for the tremendous amount of support they provided us over the last 7 months. And I also want to take an opportunity and really thank our staff. Our staff has worked tirelessly in terms of being able to go through and help support these Hispanic-owned businesses in our community, being able to go through and help them navigate through these incredibly challenging times. As you know, we are on the verge of ending our census count today. So there are 4 more hours, I believe, to be able to go through and make sure that you return your information if you have not done so already. The results and see exactly where we're at next year. I will tell you right now where we stand, and I, along with the board of directors and our staff, believe we are at a crossroads, and a very unique crossroads. We are at the crossroads of a unprecedented, multicultural economic revolution with Hispanics serving in the vanguard. Currently, Hispanics represent 62.5 million individuals in this country, and that 62.5 million represent $1.7 trillion in buying power. Now, to give you an idea of exactly how big that is, and sometimes we throw out these big numbers, 1.7 trillion is bigger than the entire Canadian economy. And it has been calculated, the gross domestic product of the United States Hispanic market, that is often referred to as a country within a country. And if it was its own country, that size would be $2.6 trillion. This is a number that was just re-released about 2 weeks ago. And this was a 7% increase over the previous 2 years in terms of economic growth. Now, this outpaced the overall economic growth for the United States by 3 times. So we understand exactly how big this market is. And when we think about Colorado, which is a little closer to home, Colorado is the 8th largest Hispanic market in terms of population, compared to the other 50 states. Currently, there are over 1.2 million Hispanics living in Colorado. 1.2 million. That is representing 22% of the state's population. In Denver alone, if we're wondering exactly what things are like, very close to home, Denver right now is close to 35% Hispanic. And if we wonder which way the wind is blowing, without having to access a lot of different proprietary data, or being able to go through the census website and get an idea of what the projections are, I think sometimes we have to simply just look at what the public school enrollment is, which is close to 58% Hispanic. So we get a very good sense of exactly which way the wind is blowing. And when we look at Hispanic-owned businesses, there are over 4.5 million nationwide, and we have close to 125,000 Hispanic-owned businesses in Colorado. Hispanic-owned business is growing, at a pace that exceeds the national average, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, depending upon the market. And it may be no surprise that immigrants are starting businesses at 3 to 5 times the average. The beauty of entrepreneurism, along with the contribution of a workforce, I think based upon these numbers, it's very easy to understand how Hispanics are going to be a very large part of everybody's future workforce, everybody's future consumer, and everybody's future voter. So with that, I also wanted to be able to go through and mention that the 1.2 million Hispanics that we have in the state of Colorado and the 62.5 million that we have in the United States are not monolithic. They are not culturally congruent. And even right now, in terms of the team that's helping put this on, we all are representative basically of different countries of origin, different degrees of assimilation and acculturation, different degrees of language, and different geographical disbursements. So it's very interesting, and it's important to be able to go through and demonstrate exactly this type of diversity. That's why we wanted to be able to go through and bring people together this evening to be able to talk and think about this type of Hispanic diversity through music, through food and drink and discussion. And always with that eye on, we are in a very unique position considering that we have election coming up, and we are a nonpartisan based organization. However, we do take positions on ballot issues. So we have some great guests coming up. We're going to start off in a moment with Patsy Landaveri, who's a board member. We will have Senator Michael Bennett. We will have Mike Henderson and Adriana Ocampo from Breakthrough Beverage assisting Senator Bennett. We will have Kent Theory. We will have Zecoro Rios. And we will have a wonderful story about a fellow Denverite who is an amazing chef and how he actually ended up serving Mexican food to the president of an African country. So with that, I'd like to take a moment and introduce you to Patsy Landaveri.
Thank you, Mike. I think I am on camera now.
Wonderful.
These are our Corona time, so we all need to adapt. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Patsy Landaveri. Yo soy miembro de la Junta Directiva de la Cámara de Comercio. Good afternoon, my name is Patsy Landaveri. I am a proud board member of the Hispanic Chamber. I was with Noble Energy, now Chevron. So I'm really excited to be here this afternoon. I was particularly excited because we have that wonderful guitarist which played a song from Peru, from Chabuca Granda. So thank you for choosing that song. I love Peruvian music, so that really put a big smile in my face. So again, thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully connection is still there and everything goes smooth. I was going to talk a little bit about the Hispanic Heritage Month, what that is. Es el mes de la hispanidad para todos nosotros. So Hispanic Heritage Month has been celebrated since 1968. It was introduced originally by President Johnson, and it used to be a week. And then under President Ronald Reagan, it became Hispanic Heritage Month. Since that time, all presidents have given a presidential proclamation for the Hispanic Heritage Month. There are several countries that celebrate their Independence Day between September and October. So the month starts, Hispanic Heritage Month starts September 15th. And it goes into October 15th, which is today. So this is the grand finale. And there were a lot of countries that celebrated their independence, including Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Mexico, Chile, and Belize. Hispanic Heritage Month is also celebrated by a couple of the military branches, including the Navy and the Army. There are several events that have been commemorated across the U.S. Of course, now with where we are this year, some of them might not be happening, but in Arkansas, New York City, Washington, D.C., Massachusetts, we have seen celebrations of Hispanic Heritage Month across the nation. And we are now celebrating it here in Colorado virtually. So it's our chance to celebrate it as well. We celebrate this month because our contributions to this country date hundreds of years, and we continue to form and shape this nation. Hispanics contribute to the United States each and every day through strong family values, food, strong work ethic, music, and let's not forget some of the amazing drinks that we're going to be seeing being prepared later on today. We have contributed to so many foods that now we see in the American cuisine. Potatoes are from South America, quinoa, avocados, cacao, corn, and I think maybe through the quarantine, everyone might have been a little bit more addicted to coffee. I know that I have myself. So in the state of Colorado, we have had strong Hispanic leadership. At the beginning of this year, the 22nd Colorado General Assembly had the largest Latino representatives in its history, 13 of them. However, we still have work to do because, as Mike was saying, this is still not proportionate to our population in Colorado. We have had a few memorable and wonderful legislators and elected officials here in Colorado. Senator Polly Baca was elected as the first Latina to the state in 1974. Leroy Garcia was the Senate president, first Latino to serve in that position. We have had Federico Peña and Ken Salazar with several appointments in the state and at the federal level. Crisanta Duran was the 38th Speaker of the Colorado House of Representatives from 2017 to 2019. The Hispanic Chamber, as well, as Mike was saying, has been such a strong voice to the Hispanic community and to advocate for all the Hispanics and Latinos in Colorado. Mike has done an incredible job to lead this organization to improve the quality of life of Latinos. I, along with the boards of directors of the Colorado Hispanic Chamber and Sofia Aguilar, who's the board chair, are committed to our Latino community, committed to Hispanic families, businesses, entrepreneurs, to Latino women, because we believe in the future and potential of our Hispanic community. Each individual has a story. As Mike said, there are 1.2 million Hispanic people in Colorado, and each one of us has his own story. We do have one thing in common, is that we are all here in the pursuit of opportunity. Like most of us, I moved to the United States when I was young. I moved here for college, and I've had all kinds of jobs. I've been a server, I've been a bartender. I used to clean floors. At one point, I used to wake up at 4 a.m. to clean floors. I am very thankful for every single job that I have had. I am very thankful for the education that I have had in this country. There's one common denominator out of all the jobs that I have had, and that was the use of the Spanish language. My Spanish skills have been an asset. And just like language is an asset, beliefs, cuisine, social habits are all assets that we bring to this nation, just like many people did before us. Now it is my honor to introduce a very special guest. I would have never thought that growing up in Peru, I would have a couple of things in common with a US Senator. But Senator Bennett and I share some passions. First is the passion for our youth and our children, and ensuring they have not a good education, a great education. Senator Bennett is a former Denver Public School superintendent and has committed his life to providing a good future for our kids. Under his leadership, enrollment increased, dropouts decreased, and he improved graduation rates and college enrollment. Second thing we share is the love for the outdoors. I have run into Senator Bennett in some Colorado trails. We're blessed to live in such a beautiful state and have the privilege to enjoy our open spaces. And there might be a third shared interest, and that is making drinks. He is going to be making some drinks today. Maybe one day we need to have a drink off. I will make pisco sour. So without further ado, Senator Bennett, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Patsy. If you can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for having me, and thanks for that incredible description of Colorado and the Hispanic community in Colorado. It's wonderful to see you.
You too.
For one. So now as we get back to things, Patsy had gone through and delivered a very nice introduction to Senator Bennett. And so if we can please add Senator Bennett and Mike Henderson and Adriana to the broadcast here. We have Kent Theory as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And right now, I think, Amy, we're still waiting for Senator Bennett to rejoin. So I sent a new link over to him. So let me just double check, and I'm going to send it to you, Amy, real quick as well.
Mike, I'm looking at you and it's making me thirsty.
Right?
Yeah, I know.
A few more back there for you to
You know, I get kind of frustrated when there isn't a good selection.
look at. We certainly have that here at Breakthrough, so.
Yeah. Well, and it is one more minute. It's 5 o'clock. It's time.
Right. Time for mojito and a Paloma.
Es verdad.
You gonna be making one at home too, Ken?
I did not know that drinking was on the agenda, but it doesn't take me long to get ready.
All right.
I think drinking is always on the agenda. So as we wait for Senator Bennett to be able to go through and rejoin, what I wanted to do is take an opportunity and introduce you to Kent Theory. And Kent, as we kind of went through entitled, basically, he is a big fan of taking a older house, but also identifying the importance of changing out the plumbing. And he has mentioned it's very difficult work, but somebody's got to do it, and it's no fun. It is definitely not the facade that you want to go through, but it's critical to the overall operation. And as we think about how this relates to the current situation we're in, and more importantly, the election coming up, and even more importantly than that, is going to be what our outlook in Colorado is going to be in the next, let's say, number of years. We have some very important decisions to make as a community. We are at a over $3 billion budget shortfall, and we have seen increasing demand on our services, on our public education, and a number of different resources. Kent is here to talk about, I think, one thing that is very critical, which is going to be what ultimately we can do as a community to be able to go through and help solve some of the problems that we are actually having. So aside from catching up and seeing exactly what you're doing after DeVita, Kent, I really want to thank you for your overall support of the Hispanic community and your support of the Energized Colorado Gap Fund and in what that's doing to help support the minority communities in Colorado. And then right now, can you talk to us a little bit about how it's important for us to think about changing out the plumbing?
Yeah, I can. And thank you again for letting me be a part of the Heritage events. And first, just an extra word on the Colorado Gap Fund, where Mike is one of the leaders working with me every week to make this happen. We've now collected over $30 million, and hopefully we're a long way from done. And this is going to be providing grants and extremely low interest loans to small businesses across Colorado, most particularly small businesses owned by minorities or women or veterans or those that are in rural areas. All four of those communities have historically suffered disadvantages in accessing capital to help them start and invest in their own small businesses. And during this time of COVID, just keeping their business alive. So we are literally cutting our first checks this week and look forward to hopefully having many of you who have small businesses and need some help reaching out and applying. But now onto the plumbing. The plumbing that Mike is referring to is the Gallagher Amendment B. We're urging you to vote yes on Amendment B. Mike and I and many, many others, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, because it has to do with repealing the Gallagher Amendment. The Gallagher Amendment, I won't torture you with any detail, but it's a 40-year-old statewide, out-of-date, arbitrary formula for determining who pays what property tax. Unfortunately, the way it's evolved, it is like bad plumbing after 40 years in a house if you don't upgrade it. What happens right now is if you have communities like Denver and Boulder that are growing in population and growing in home values, they end up with a bigger share of the state tax collection revenue. But the other half of Colorado suddenly has property tax revenue taken away from it. And those people in those communities only have two choices: raise local taxes to make up for it, and raise local taxes in a way that charges small business 5 times the rate of residential because of the way the Gallagher Amendment is written. Or if they don't want to raise local taxes and burden small business, they have to let firefighters go, ambulances be shut down, police go, K through 12 is economically hurt. So it's an out-of-date, very unfair, destructive policy. And so Mike and I urge you to vote yes on Amendment B, repeal the Gallagher Amendment, which will freeze residential rates right where they are. The Taxpayer Bill of Rights will prevent them from being raised ever without a vote of the people, and it will help the other half of Colorado keep their hard-earned tax revenue. Thanks, Mike. Oh, were you able to hear that, Mike?
Yep. And can you hear me right at the moment?
I can now hear you. Did you hear anything I said?
I did. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Heard everything. It's always a little difficult now with the limited amount of reaction and the delay. But thank you, Kent. And I know you have some meetings you need to get to. So we will say till next time, and we'll catch up soon. Thank you.
Adios. Tenga cuidado.
Thank you. And now I'd like to welcome back Senator Bennett and have you basically work with Mr. Henderson here from Diageo and Breakthrough Beverage. And have we determined exactly what beverage will be? Is it going to be a Paloma? Is it going to be a mojito?
I think we're going to do a mojito if that's okay with Mike.
Absolutely.
Sounds great.
Before you do that, Mike, can I just say one word? Just because Patsy and I got cut off earlier, and I just wanted to say that she said something so important, at least to me, and that is the reflecting on the idea that immigrants come here to pursue opportunity. That's why my family came here. My mother was the only one who could speak any English when they came to the United States, and she enrolled herself in school, and my grandparents were able to start a small business here, and I traveled the state a lot, and I still have never met anybody with an accent stronger than the accent my grandparents had. And I just wanted to mention that I spent the last 3 days in southern Colorado, and a big part of that time I was in the San Luis Valley, and I spent an afternoon with Ken Salazar on his ranch with a number of people from that part of the state. And one of the more senior members of the people that was there, somebody who was easily in their 80s, was telling me how his father used to tell them that the border had crossed over them, not that they had crossed over the border. And of course, that's true. Ken and I went to the oldest church in Colorado, Our Lady of Guadalupe in Conejos, which is just north of Encinitas. And it's just a reminder that before the Treaty of Guadalupe or Hidalgo was signed in 1848, there was no Colorado, and Colorado wasn't obviously part of the United States. It was a part of, at different times, part of Mexico and part of Spain. It's just a reminder at this moment that we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month in Colorado, just how far back those roots go. They go far back before Colorado was ever a state, far back before the United States of America ever was the United States of America. And I think that's history that we should celebrate, and I'm glad you are. I don't know.
All right, Senator, you ready to make a mojito?
I'm ready. Did you get anything that I said?
Sorry, what was that?
Did you guys hear what I said earlier?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm totally ready to. In fact, I'm ready not only to make one, but to consume one.
Yeah, me too. All right. Well, let's get started. You kind of have everything you need in front of you?
I think I do, yeah.
Okay. So let's start by grabbing a shaker tin if you got one.
Oh, A shaker. There you
Sort of
go.
cocktail shaker. That's perfect. Open that guy all the way up.
Yep.
And then the first thing we're going to do is add 1.5 ounces of white rum.
Okay. This is a shot? Is a shot an ounce or?
Yeah. So do that whole the larger of those two. The larger side there. Just all the way to the top.
So there's a half.
Great.
All right.
Next up, do you have some lime juice?
I do.
Fantastic. Going to do 3/4 ounce of lime juice, or about half as much rum that you just put in.
Okay. 3/4 ounce. So for those of you making this at home, if you actually put 3 ounces of rum in, then you want 1.5 ounces of lime juice.
Correct. Important part here is just keeping the ratios the same.
Right.
This is a pretty standard
Throughout-
2-1-1 cocktail where it's 2
Throughout-
parts base spirit, 1 part sweetener, 1 part acid.
Okay, great.
Next up, we're going to do 3/4 ounce of simple syrup.
Now, what is simple syrup made out of, Mike? Is it?
Simple syrup is just equal parts sugar and water. When sugar is in the presence of alcohol, it doesn't like to dissolve. So if you pre-dilute it, it blends into the cocktail better.
Gotcha. All right. Okay.
Next up, grab some mint.
Now, I've just, in the movement for slow foods and local foods, this came out of our garden. That's why
That's fantastic.
That's why we're
So,
making the mojito.
Do this. Take the stalk where you kind of have the head of the mint
Yeah.
and kind of pull all the lower leaves off.
Okay.
And then keep the pretty top piece that we're going to use for a garnish.
Great. There it is. Right.
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay.
So just go ahead and throw those mint leaves in. But before you do it, kind of wad it up in your hand like this and just give it a slap. There you go. Throw that in. What that does is it releases the oils from the mint without tearing it apart and making it too bitter. So it actually gives your cocktail a really nice minty flavor.
Smells amazing.
Yeah. Next up, add some ice to your shaker tin.
Hold on 1 second, Mike. How much ice? How much ice?
Just a scoop of ice. Fill your shaker tin about 3/4 of the way.
Perfect. Maybe a couple. Thank you. That's Susan Daggett, my wife, who's ably assisting in this effort.
Hello.
This is Mike. Okay, got it.
Close the shaker tin, put the cap on, and then the smaller cap as well. And then shake pretty hard for about 8 seconds. So shake it kind of as hard as you can for about 8 seconds.
Good?
Be pretty good. Does it feel pretty cold? Is the tin
Yeah.
cold?
Yeah.
Right, then you're in a good spot. Open that guy up. Just take the top piece off. Just the smaller top piece, if it'll
Okay.
come off. There you go. Grab a glass, a Collins glass or something like this
We
if
got
you
a
got it.
version. This is our version of one.
That's perfect.
Not perfect, but yeah.
See if your lovely assistant can throw a little ice in there for you.
Yeah, I will. Here we go. Okay.
And then just strain that cocktail into the glass.
Just pour it in.
Just pour it right in. Leave a little room at the top because we're going to add some soda water to it. So if it fills it up all the way, leave it. Just give it a little bit of room at the top.
There.
Great.
How's that?
Then we're just going to top it with a little bit of soda water. You can kind of add as much or as little as you like. If you like a little bit stronger drink, add less. If you want to be a little bit more drinkable and refreshing, add a little bit more. But I usually recommend about 2 or 3 ounces.
Okay.
And then that pretty piece of mint that you saved from that mint from your garden,
Yeah.
you're going to take that and just kind of similar to what we did with the mint before we're slapping it, just going to take it and kind of wrap it against the back of your hand. That does the same thing, and then just insert it into your glass.
It does. You can really smell it.
Yeah, it totally works.
Yeah.
And there you go. You've got a perfect mojito. Cheers, Senator.
Cheers. Thanks, Mike. Cheers to everybody. That's really good.
Not bad, right?
Really good. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month, everybody. Thanks for having me. Mike, thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, sir. Senator.
Thank you guys very much for both being here. Thank you, Mike Henderson, and thank you, Senator Michael Bennett.
Thanks, Mike Ferrafino.
All right,
Thanks for
wonderful.
all your leadership and everything you're doing. This is a tough time for a lot of Colorado, for a lot of Hispanic small business owners. And I'm deeply, deeply grateful for your leadership and the Hispanic Chamber's leadership. We're going to get through this together.
No, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Well, we will continue on with the program, and we will now be introducing a wonderfully talented chef who, are you on? I think you're muted still. Wonderful.
I'm here.
There we go. Perfect. Well, listen, you and I had an opportunity to be able to go through and talk about maybe 2 years ago. And first of all, I want to thank you for all of the assistance and help you provided our organization and your wonderful support of our event Sabor, which we unfortunately were not able to have this year. But overall, what I was amazed with is not only your culinary skill, but I was intrigued with this story that you told me, and I'd like you to share that with everybody else. One, just introduce yourself and give us all a little background, but tell us how you ended up in the continent of Africa, working for a president of an African country, and ultimately ended up opening up restaurants for him.
Yes, Mike. So I'm from Jalisco, Mexico, and when I was a kid, like Patsy said, our parents usually they bring us kids, and we go to school here. I went to culinary school and started working for a big company that does all sports. As you can see, all my memorabilia in the back, Super Bowls and everything. And I got the opportunity to go to London 2012 for the Olympics. And there I met a person, a little kid. He was allergic to everything pretty much. A few years later, I get a message from him through Facebook, and he offered me a job to move to Africa. I had no idea who he was, and then turned out his dad was the president of Gabon, Ali Bongo. So that made me thought about it and said, hey, I talked to my executive chef at the time, and he's like, go for it. This is going to be good for your resume. This is going to put you at a different level. Go ahead and spend a year out there and then come back and, I'll make you an executive chef or whatever arena. I said, well, cool, that's fine. And 1 year turned into 3 years. We opened up 10 restaurants with the president. Plus, I had to travel with him over the years, over 2 years, I think, to different countries throughout the world. And it was pretty fun. It was pretty exciting traveling. We got to open up the first Mexican restaurant in West Africa. That was pretty insane. They had no idea what a taco was. We had to do a picture illustrated on our menu on how to eat a taco. Most people in Africa and Europe, you go there, small towns, or they have no idea how to eat a taco. So we introduced moles, adobos, everything to the West Africa area there. And then the cool thing about it is, like, we would get helicopters and all these other presidents from all over the Africa continent and all over the world to go there and eat there. Even Messi from the Barcelona soccer star. Well, he's not in Barcelona anymore, I think. But yeah, he was there eating our food for 2 days. So it's been fun, and Came back 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. Then moved to Colorado. I started working there in Colorado, and that's how I met you guys. And I was part of Sabor last year. That was a really cool event. That it sucks that we don't have to do this year, but hopefully next year we get back at it. But yeah, it's been pretty fun. It's been fun living in Colorado. I enjoy everybody, the community here. It's pretty fun. I know a bunch of people now because of you guys, and I thank you for that.
I remember you telling me about the challenge of you being able to get everything you needed to Gabon, and how you had to go back to Mexico, and what that process was like. And can you tell everybody about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was. I mean, you're in Africa. You have nothing out there. So how the heck are you gonna make tamales? How are you gonna make tortillas, moles, or achotes? None of that. You have nothing. So one of the trips to Mexico was to buy everything. So we took a full container, filled it up with tequila, dried chilies, all these condiments, decorations for the restaurant. And we did it. We took it to the port of Veracruz, and it took 3 months to get it to Gabon, to the port of Gabon. So I learned a lot of international trading and all these other permits and all that fun stuff that goes through when you try to open up a business to in a different country, in a different area. I mean, it's so hard for opening a restaurant in a country that has no idea what Mexican cooking is. There's no peppers, there's none of that. So it was pretty challenging. It took a few months to get it going, but it's still there. My plan is to go back next year and catch up with the guys. The chef that I left there, he's still there. We talk often on the phone. I talk to Nordine, which is the son of the president. I talk to him often as possible, and everything's going pretty well for them over there in Gabon.
Or being able to be such a great ambassador of such a wonderful culinary tradition, and as we realize that Mexico has such and regionally has such a unique, different kind of culinary traditions within this regional models. So I wanted to be able to go through and just say thank you for what you're doing on that side, because it is very unique to be able to go through and being able to go through, and the challenges of being an entrepreneur and a restaurant owner, I think in a modern age is challenging to begin with, but nevertheless to be able to do it under those conditions, just what a fascinating story.
Yeah.
So I wanted to thank you for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you in person at some point soon.
Yeah, hopefully we get back together out in the public, normal, without a face mask.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And now we have a wonderful person to be able to go through and introduce, and this is somebody who I have been able to go through and work with many times in many different capacities over the years. But part of the point of this discussion was really kind of being able to go through and talk about, this, idea of a question of what is the best-selling musical genre within Latin American music, and it's probably not what you think it is. I think that there are styles of music that we sometimes think are flying under the radar or completely off our radar that actually represent a tremendous amount of listenership within the United States and within the United States Hispanic market. We oftentimes like to think about J-Lo and Mark Anthony and a number of other individuals that actually are representative of this iconic culture. But from a musical side, I think it's very interesting to be able to go through and explore and utilize music as a way to be able to go through and segment and define our different cultures as well. I've had a wonderful time being able to go through and listen to the Buena Vista Social Club and see Mana at the Pepsi Center. But I also want to be able to tell you that the majority of concerts and music that is sold out throughout the southwestern United States are not the artists that sometimes you think they are. So to help us understand a little bit more of the diversity within music of the Hispanic culture is Socorro Rios, who is the program director for KBNO Radio and is very unique in the fact that she is one of the very few female program directors in regional Mexican music. So I want to welcome Socorro and ask you to tell us a little bit about what, it's like working for a radio station, working basically within the music industry for as long as you have, and why, we should not necessarily think as J-Lo and Mark Anthony and a lot of these other artists as representative exclusively of Spanish language music.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Mike. You're right, Mike, in the sense that, it's very, if we categorize Latin music as, Pitbull, J-Lo, Cardi B, the Spanish names that you hear on the mainstream music, yes, they are great representatives of Latin music in the mainstream, but when it comes to what Spanish music, like literally the Spanish language music, is being listened to by Hispanics in this country, it's nothing of Mark Anthony or J-Lo or Cardi B or Ariana Grande, none of those. Our Hispanic radio stations in this country, we have about at least 500 radio stations that broadcast 100% Spanish music in the country. Out of those, the majority of them broadcast original Mexican music. That it's not J-Lo, it's not Mark Anthony, even though they're great artists for the mainstream listening. Original Mexican music is more of a, I want to say it's more of a very similar to country music in English, because the lyrics have very similar traits to the country music. It emphasizes a lot in the tradition of the family. It's very different in lyrics. Sound-wise is also very different. So the original Mexican music it's like an umbrella, a big blanket that under that blanket it has banda, norteño, mariachi, cumbias. They're all very different forms of Mexican style music that, depending on the part of Mexico that you're from, that's where it's going to be very popular. And in Denver, like in the majority of the major cities, we have a very high percentage of people from, our Latinos are mainly here from Mexico. Their origin is Mexico. Denver and the suburbs, we have about 82% of the Latinos that are origin from Mexico. And you'd be very surprised, because we've talked about this, you and I, that when I grew up, I came to Denver when I was 10 from Zacatecas. Growing up in my high school and in my environment, I grew up listening to Michael Jackson, Tina Turner, Kenny Rogers, the Bee Gees, that was the music. The Spanish music that I listened to was the one my parents used to play at the house. But it wasn't cool to embrace my culture outside my house back in the 80s. Now we have all these millennials, Mike, that are embracing their cultures, their language, their music. They cross over between Beyonce and Banda El Recodo. You can find one in a Mark Anthony concert, and you might, find him in a Christian Nodal concert, which you would say it's very different music style-wise, but that is what they are consuming. The majority of the radio stations in this country played regional Mexican music. You know, it's a reality. It's a beautiful music. It kind of reminds me of, you know, what the millennials are doing right now is they are embracing what Linda Ronstadt did back in the 80s when she did the record Canciones de Mi Padre. You know, she embraced her heritage, her culture. And that's what not only my generation and the generation before me, but the new generation, they're embracing culture, diversity through their music. You know, and it's something that I think we should all you know, open our eyes to, so we know what our generations are consuming. I'm not saying that that's the only thing they consume, but when it comes to Spanish music, that is the majority of the format that is being consumed in Spanish. But the new generations cross over to, you know, all the mainstream English music. Are you there?
No, I absolutely agree. And, you know, I'd also like I said, I've always been fascinated as well with your stories. You have been able to go through, not only have you been able to break the glass ceiling in terms of working within the radio industry and serving as one of the very few female program directors, but you also have been able to go through and build up bands and take them touring throughout the world. Are there any stories you'd like to share with us in terms of experiences that allow, you know, one to kind of have a certain glimpse into basically some of this diversity or challenge or opportunity that you've seen in terms of being able to go through and tour these bands, you know, that are Mexican based, but throughout, you know, Europe or South America?
You know, I have a really nice story. You know, most of my life I've been able to work with music. You know, whether it's in the radio before that, you know, through the concert venue that we shared. Before that, I managed a band, a Mexican music band, but it wasn't based in Mexico. It was based in Santa Maria, California. California is full of bands, you know, whether they're you know, of Mexican origin or any other Latin American country. Obviously, you know, you have more from Mexico, but yes, I was able to put together a band back in 1990, and it was a wonderful story because through that I was able to travel not only all of Mexico, which I had never traveled before because I moved here when I was 10. I got the opportunity to go back with that band, a Mexican American band, 100% Spanish music. But we got the opportunity to go back to our origins, to Mexico. And, you know, it was funny because, you know, we were considered, you know, los extranjeros. You know, we had to go back and ask for a visa to be able to play in Mexico. And, you know, we thought it was weird because, you know, we felt we're coming back to, you know, the country of our ancestors, but we have to get a visa to play. And it was, you know, a wonderful experience being able to experience not only the diversity of culture in the music, but also the food. You know, when I was listening to the chef there talk about food, you know, the diversity of the Hispanic culture when it comes to food is so great. The different parts of Mexico have different foods. You know, like the mole, the escamoles. You know, I went to Oaxaca and tasted the grasshoppers for the first time. And then I also got the opportunity to go to Central America and South America and embrace the beauty of the culture, the music. Our culture, our countries are full of beautiful culture, Mike. Whether it's, you know, Central America, Guatemala, Colombia, We went as far down as Argentina to play with original Mexican music back in the 90s. This was early 90s when, everybody thought it was impossible because Mexican American music, the original Mexican music used to be looked upon down. It used to be looked upon as something that it was for the suburbs, not for the big cities, And, we went to play in Buenos Aires back in 92, for 4,000 or 5,000 people, beautiful concerts that we had over there. We went to many or most of the major cities in Latin America playing Mexican American music. And I say Mexican Americans because we were a band from the US playing regional Mexican music. So it's beautiful. It's been a beautiful adventure, and I have been blessed to have been able to practically live my whole life or work my whole life out of something that I really enjoy doing, which is something related to music.
Socorro, and I will tell you that I've always been able to go through and and feel that from you. So I appreciate your passion and your commitment and your advocacy for the Hispanic community as a whole. So, and thank you very much for joining us this evening. And I look forward to catching up to you very shortly.
Thank you,
with
Mike.
that, I would like to go
Always
through.
great.
We're getting close to closing, and if Patsy is available, I'd like to go through and pull her back basically on this stream and say, thank you very much for joining us today. We will be able to go through and kind of rebroadcasting this as well. We sent this out to about 5 different links. And as you know, there are always little challenges. So there are a few people that were not able to go through because of internet browsers and other unique little basically encoding issues. So we'll make sure we go through and send and rebroadcast this out. But nevertheless, I wanted to thank as well Patsy for joining us this evening. And Patsy, do you have any parting words for us?
Gracias, Mike. Sí, quería decirles a todos otra vez que tengan un feliz mes de la hispanidad. Todos tenemos que estar muy orgullosos por las contribuciones que hacemos a este país, en nuestras comunidades, en nuestras familias. Es muy importante que siempre estemos unidos y darnos la mano para salir todos adelante, especialmente en estos momentos que son tan difíciles. Nos tenemos los unos a los otros. La Cámara Hispana está aquí para ayudarlos en lo que necesiten. So happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you all for joining us. What makes us strong and unique is that we have each other. We're here to support each other. We're one big family made from so many different countries and so many people, as Senator Bennett was saying, that have been in Colorado before it was even Colorado for generations. So the Hispanic Chamber, the Colorado Hispanic Chamber is here to serve you. We're here for you. Anything that you need, please reach out to us. And we should celebrate our culture and who we are every single day and be proud of it. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much, Patsy. And I want to take a moment and thank everybody for participating this evening. I'd like to thank Senator Bennett and Senator Bennett's staff in terms of being able to go through and make this all possible. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Santiago. And thank you for being able to go through and make this work. I want to thank Kent Theory and all the great work he's doing with the Energized Colorado Gap Fund and with the Amendment B in terms of being able to go through and provide an additional $500 million approximately every year to help support public education, public services, fire departments, hospitals, nurses. Thank you. And then also thank you, Socorro Rios. Thank you, Chef Chito.